Hey fellow traders, how are you doing? Hope you're all doing really well. My name is Vishal, also known as VGOK. Now, welcome to my channel. Just a little bit about me. I've been trading in the foreign exchange market for about 2 years now, and just through all the sort of things that I have learned through my journey, my main aim, through this YouTube channel is to actually show you guys how I look at the charts and break down my analysis. Now, the main style or the main strategy of trading which I use, which I do, it's got many names, but it's most widely known as institutional trading, also known as smart money concepts. Now, it's not only institutional trading; it's this in conjunction with Wyckoff analysis as well. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to show you how I was able to actually catch this intraday sell entry, which you guys can see right now. Now this sell entry was on GBP so the Great British Pound against the US dollar. And in this trade, I was able to achieve a 1 to 10 risk to reward ratio. As you can see, it was a 1 to 10.75. Yeah, analyzing a chart, the main way we want to be doing this is using a top-down analysis. Now, what that means is you're formulating your bias, your narrative, basically however you think the trade is going to be going on a higher time frame, and then working your way down to the lower time frames to get the entry eventually. So the first thing, I usually start off on the daily, weekly, and the 4 hour. I class those as my higher time frames, and then you have more intraday time frames such as the 2 hour, the 1 hour, the 45-minute and 30-minute, and then 15-minute and under for me is more of a scalping sort of time frame. Now, starting off on the 4 hour, so as we can see, the first thing that I can actually sort of see that really jumps out to me is this area over here with the pound sign. This is the area of liquidity, which can be easily sort of marked up on a chart by any set of equal lows or equal highs. Now, as we can see, the movement coming into this equal low area where it created these equal lows, we can see that it was creating a downtrend. We can see that it was creating a high, a low, a lower high, and then a lower low, then creates another lower high, and then another lower low. So we know that we have a bearish sort of bias when it comes to looking at this from the 4 hour perspective. But whenever we do have a bearish bias, we should be favoring the sell scenarios. Now, because this is the last significant lower high, as it created a new lower low, there is still a valid supply area in this area where we can look for a bearish narrative. So if we switch it down to the 2 hour, now we can really see here a really nice looking institutional candle. I think it's actually on the hourly time frame. So yeah, on the hourly time frame, we can see there's a very big institutional area over here. This was that last significant lower high, like I labeled earlier. And the point of interest which we can work off from this is taking from the imbalance fill to this last candle. That's going to be our institutional candle. That's going to form our higher time frame point of interest, just to see if we can get a good bearish reaction from this area. So that's our higher time frame area, and as we can see, when price actually does eventually come into this area, we can see that price it struggles to really break above this lower high, and instead we get a very aggressive move to the downside. Now what that means is basically what we have, and instead we are getting a continuation of this downtrend. This lower high is being respected, and it's creating another lower high at this point here to create further lower lows eventually. So as we can see in this middle part here, in this piece of price action here, we can see there is an uptrend happening. Now this uptrend, we can see that it's created a low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and so on and so forth. Now that this has reached our point of interest for a bearish sort of momentum, we can see that this movement down has actually taken out some significant higher lows. So what we can see is we had a higher low, a higher high, higher low, higher high. You see this movement down has actually broken structure to the downside. So this has actually formed us another good area to look at for some selling scenario. And the area I'm marking up right now is, as you can see, it's just this imbalance that exists on the hourly time frame in this section right here. So as I label that out, that's the hourly time frame for our new point of interest. And as we can see, the price run up to this area came up very aggressively here, which shouldn't really, but now we can see how this really spiked up into this zone. And we're going to go down now into the 10-minute time frame. And now what we can see, as price reaches its way up closer and closer to that hourly POI, which is this purple box here, the hourly POI is over here, and we can see price running up towards it. Now, as we see it get closer and closer, we see it's definitely in an upwards movement. But all of a sudden, it starts to move sideways. It starts to consolidate. And this whole structure, which I'm about to highlight now, is basically a type of Wyckoff distribution schematic. So this whole thing in the box is a Wyckoff distribution schematic. So right here, we can see we have the preliminary supply. And then we have a buyer's climax, where a lot of the buyers, within this bullish run have been exhausted. We then have an automatic rally to the downside right here, a secondary test, and we also have a sign of weakness right here. Then we can see price does eventually go up higher into the original POI, takes out any liquidity sitting over here, and we've got this as the upthrust, and this extra little push up at the top, that's going to be our UTAD phase, the upthrust after distribution phase. So here we can see there has been a nice schematic being formed, a distribution schematic, and what makes this schematic valid is not just all the steps, all the sort of points within the schematic lining up nicely. It's all to do with, as soon as we get the UTAD, we need to see a break of structure to the downside. Now, do we actually see that? So as it's reacted into the area, into this purple box area, we can see that it's made a nice UT and a UTAD, and then this aggressive movement down. Now, if we actually zoom in on this price right here, you can see there's a low, a high, a higher low, and a higher high being created up here. So the significant higher low that was actually broken was this one here. And we can see that this price movement here goes below it quite nicely. So we can see there is a break of structure right here. We could label that on as well. So we have break of structure. Now, as we can see, once we have the break of structure, we have a very clean, on the 10-minute time frame, this institutional candle, this final buy before sell within the UTAD phase of the distribution schematic, and we have a very clean buy to sell movement, which also broke structure, which is perfect, which is everything we need for our confirmations. So then we treat this as the next POI, and then we can zoom in on price once we get to this area. Now, what I'm going to do is move it to the 5-minute, and I'm actually going to cut the chart down to our area of entry. I'll cut it off there, and we can actually watch it get into our area of interest. So as we can see, we're waiting for price. We'll go down to the 1 minute so we can see everything in detail, and we're going to watch price come into this area. Now, when we're waiting for price to come into an area of interest, we've got to be thinking about two things. Is it going to be continuing through the point of interest, or are we going to get our expected rejection down? And we want to be seeing the same thing that we've seen in this area here with the break of structure. We want to see the same thing in this area here, in the point of interest. Now, as we forward price along, the price along, you see price spikes up in this candle quite nicely, up to the top end of this the whole point of interest. And then we can see it starts to reject, but we need to wait for that break of structure, like I said. And here we go. That there was the break of structure. So now let's mark it up. So what we have here is we've got, again, a minor uptrend coming into our POI for the sells. And what we have in this uptrend is we have the low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. And as we actually scroll in between here, it's hard to see on the 1 minute time frame, but if you were to go down into a 30-second or a 15-second time frame, there is actually another higher low here which created this higher high up there. And as you can see, as this movement down happened, we had our break of structure. So we'll mark on the BOS right here, break of market structure right there. And then we are ready. As soon as we have that break of structure and candlesticks close below the last significant higher low in this situation, we are then ready to take our sell entries. So based upon that break of structure, we then place our sell entries, and my entries here was simply just the imbalance fill of this candle. So entry would be there, stop loss would be above the previous structural point. So that would be this point here, giving us a nice 5.5 to 6 pip stop loss. And then in terms of setting the targets, or where we want to be looking to take profit, for me personally, I had a area of demand over here. So I was expecting price to come down into this candle and then keep on rejecting upwards. So that is where I want to be taking most of my profits. And that was the final TP for me. And as you can see, that was the 1 to 10.5 risk to reward ratio. And as we go back down into the 1 minute time frame, so the entry I was looking for was here. And we want to be seeing how this entry is going to play out. So as I forward the price, there we go, we've been entered into the trade. It's floating around entry, and then we get the movement which we are waiting for. And as we can see, as price develops, and there we go, that's the final TP being hit. And we can actually see from the time of entry to the time it took to take profit point, you're achieving a 1 to 10 risk to reward ratio in an hour and a half, which is fantastic. And that was pretty much how I caught this 1 to 10 trade on GU. Exit the replay mode. What we can actually see is that was the sell entry which we had. And if we were to actually hold for the next day, so if I put the zones on so we can see the days, this entry was executed on a Thursday. And if I was to hold until into Friday, which would have been a very wise decision by the looks of this, so we would actually be achieving, you know, close to a 1 to 25 risk to reward ratio, as you can see there, 1 to 25. But again, a wise place in this situation to take profits would be within this imbalance fill, because there is a very big spike in this area. So we could have at least caught a minimum of around a 1 to 20, which is amazing for 2 days worth of compounding. But yeah, that's pretty much how I caught this entry. Also, guys, one thing I really want to stress is that any analysis and any sort of trade scenarios that you see on my channel or on any of my future videos, please understand that they're for educational purposes only. I'm in no way a financial advisor, so please understand that all trading involves risk. But yeah, like I said before, my main aim through this YouTube channel is to actually show you guys that it can be relatively simple to catch, you know, similar trades to this, and on a regular basis. And also, like, in the future, I am planning on releasing a series of videos where I can actually go into the analysis in more detail. I can actually delve deeper into, you know, the technicals and also the fundamentals of how I look at the charts and my analysis. So yeah, with that being said, if you're excited for any future videos, and if you got value from this video, please do subscribe and stay tuned. And with that being said, thank you and goodbye.